Open your fridge right now. Mentally, if not literally. Count the ingredients you rely on today. Bread, milk, coffee, something wrapped in plastic from a country you've never visited. Now, imagine that fridge is gone. No agriculture, no shelves, no expiration dates. Just you, a fire if you're lucky, and whatever the land gives up in the next 6 hours. That was the human condition for roughly 290,000 years. Farming has existed for about 12,000. Here's the disruption. You've probably heard the paleo diet story. Lean meat, wild greens, no grains, no sugar. In 2010, a team led by archaeologist Amanda Henry examined dental plaque from Neanderthal remains in Shanidar Cave, Iraq, and Spy Cave, Belgium. Inside that fossilized plaque, they found starch granules from barley and root vegetables, cooked. Neanderthals, dead for 40,000 years, were eating carbs. The meat-only caveman was never real. This is going to change how you think about your own plate, because the human diet was never one diet. It was a 290,000-year experiment in improvisation, and your body is still running the code from it. Start with the most famous meal ever reconstructed. Ötzi. In September 1991, 2 German hikers found a mummified body melting out of a glacier in the Ötztal Alps on the border of Austria and Italy. He'd died around 3,300 BCE, roughly 5,300 years ago. In 2018, a team at the Urac Research Institute in Bolzano, Italy, published a full analysis of his stomach contents. His last meal, ibex meat, red deer, einkorn wheat, and traces of toxic fern, possibly eaten to fight intestinal parasites. The fat content of that meal was extraordinarily high. Around 50% of his stomach contents was pure animal fat. That number matters. Ötzi wasn't grazing on lean venison. He was chasing calories, hard, in a cold climate that burned through them fast. His body was a furnace, and fat was fuel. But here's where it gets stranger. Ötzi lived at the very edge of the agricultural revolution. He had wheat in his gut, but he was still hunting ibex through mountain passes like a forager from 20,000 years earlier. He was standing in 2 different food worlds at once, and his stomach proves it. Push back further, past agriculture entirely, to a site called Ohalo II on the shore of the Sea of Galilee in Israel. It's roughly 23,000 years old, submerged underwater for most of the 20th century until a drought in 1989 dropped the lake level and exposed it. Archaeologists led by Ehud Weiss found a brush hut, a grinding stone, and something unexpected: charred remains of over 90,000 plant specimens, including wild wheat and barley. Someone at Ohalo II was grinding wild grain into flour and baking it into something like bread, 10,000 years before farming officially began. That's not the whole story, though. The same site contained the bones of at least 19 species of fish and dozens of species of birds and mammals. This wasn't a farming settlement, it was a hyper-diverse foraging operation, exploiting a lake ecosystem so rich that people could stay in one place for months at a time, doing something that looked almost like agriculture without ever planting a seed on purpose. Now go further back, to a discovery that broke the timeline entirely. In 2015, researchers examined stone tools at a site called Lomekwi III in modern-day Kenya, dated to 3.3 million years ago. That's 700,000 years before the genus Homo even existed. These tools were likely made by an earlier hominin, possibly Kenyanthropus platyops. The tools show signs of use for processing plant material and possibly butchering. Diet, and the technology to expand it, predates humanity itself. But here's where the story turns uncomfortable. In 2012, a study published in PLOS I examined the bones of early Homo erectus in Kenya, dated to around 1.5 million years ago. One individual showed signs of hypervitaminosis A, vitamin A poisoning, likely from repeatedly eating the livers of carnivores. This wasn't gentle grazing. It was risky trial and error experimentation with unfamiliar foods, and sometimes it nearly killed the people doing it. Every safe food you eat today survived a filtering process paid for in someone else's illness. That filtering process didn't stop with liver poisoning, it shaped you at the genetic level, and the clearest proof is in your own saliva. Humans carry multiple copies of a gene called AMY1, which produces amylase, the enzyme that breaks starch into sugar in your mouth. In a 2016 study published in Nature Genetics, researchers found that populations with a long history of starchy diets, like agricultural societies, carry more copies of AMY1 than populations with traditionally low starch diets, like some Arctic hunter groups. Your ancestors' menu, going back thousands of years, is written into the number of copies of a single gene sitting in your cells right now. Except there was a problem with treating any of this as a fixed blueprint. In 2017, anthropologist Alyssa Crittenden published research on the Hadza, a hunter-gatherer population in Tanzania, one of the last groups on Earth still living a largely foraging lifestyle. Their diet shifts dramatically by season. In the dry season, up to 70% of their calories can come from meat and hunted game. In the wet season, that flips, with wild honey and tubers making up the bulk of intake. There is no single Hadza diet. There's a Hadza diet for June and a completely different one for December. Consistency was never the point. Adaptability was. That's the thread running through Ötzi's fat-heavy last meal. The bread at Ohalo II, the poisoned liver eater in Kenya, and the amylase genes in your own mouth right now. Nobody in 290,000 years of human history ate the human diet. They ate the ibex that was there, the wheat that grew that year, the lake that hadn't dried up yet. The species didn't survive by finding the one correct way to eat. It survived by refusing to commit to any single way at all. And every time you stand in front of an open fridge, unsure what you're in the mood for, some very old part of your brain is just doing what it has always done.